Hello everyone. I want to make a video for this particular week because I just have a couple of updates to share, and I want to make sure that I share them in a fashion that is easy to access. Before we do that, I want to jump into a couple of quick reminders. Remember, in this class, like I said in the opening video, anytime the page numbers are listed, they're listed here. And also, by the way, since there are multiple editions of this book, just in case you have a different edition or a slightly different version, I have also listed the title of those chapters. So for example, if you're reading literature, it will have the page numbers listed, but it says literature, and you can find that in the table of contents if you need to. Everything else is listed under GUITS, like I said in the opening video. That is all the content here, and that will be listed by author. That leads me to the explorations. The explorations are, like I said in the opening video, very simple, straightforward, but you need to dig in. And you need to be specific when you dig in. So, for example, you need to make sure that you use page numbers, or you need to make sure that you say this information was in the podcast, or it was in the slides, or what have you. And make sure you used assigned text. Don't just open this book randomly to some page and then pick something out and then try to link it to the explorations. As we go forward, I will keep increasing the penalty I assign for that, because it's very obvious that you're not doing the reading and that you're just randomly trying to, skirt through the assignment. The assignment's very easy. It's very straightforward. You talk to somebody, you then make clear course connections. You need to be doing that. I'm not asking a lot of you, and it's a summer class. I will increasingly be enforcing that. Last thing, the quizzes. I cannot make exceptions for the quizzes. If something goes wrong, then I can't reset the quiz. That's unfair to people. But keep in mind that the lowest 3 quiz grades are dropped in the class, so if for some reason you mess one of them up, don't panic. Now, that brings me to the reason I wanted to make this video. As of the posting of this weekly update where you're watching this video, you will be moving toward next week where you will have your exam. Please pay attention to the exam. Right there, 120 minutes. It's going to take you 120 minutes to complete it, maybe. I've had students go up to that limit before. You have just a handful of questions on this. They are all short answer, with the exception of, I don't want to click in and specify, but I believe it's 1 or 2 questions that are multiple choice. But the rest of them should be short answer, and you should make sure that a couple of things. 1, don't Google it and then just copy and paste something. That will receive a 0. That's plagiarism. 2, you need to be using course content. Make sure that you're drawing from the reading, the podcast, the whatever materials. All the materials in the class speak directly to the information here in the exam, so make sure that you're drawing on that. 3, I don't need a works cited page. I don't need a references page. I know where you got the information. I'm telling you that right now. I expect you to draw up on this resources. Even so, if you use a direct quote, make sure you put quotation marks around it, because that information does not belong to you, and you need to show that that information does not belong to you. Don't just drop an entire quote in there. Make sure that you elaborate on it. So don't just, if, for example, it asks for a definition of culture, don't just pull that from the book. Make sure that you pull that from the book and then explain what that means. I don't need to read what the book said exactly. I would rather see you make those critical links to the course content. And then finally, I don't grade for grammar, for spelling, for paragraphing, for any of that stuff on the exam, because you're on a time limit. And because you're on a time limit, I don't count off for that. I don't grade for that. I don't review for that. Even so, try to make sure that you spell words out. You're a college student. You should be writing like a college student. We don't need to use the letter U in place of Y-O-U in a case like this. So you need to make sure that you write as best you can. But if you don't know how to spell something, take your best swing at it and just move forward. Okay. With all of that being said, again, just be careful about the plagiarism portion. I do enforce that. It's pretty easy for me to go and find that information. That includes other various resources as well. So use only the course content, put in your best effort, and make sure you set aside time. As with the quizzes, I will not reset the exam if you exit the exam, because that's unfair to the other students. They get one shot at it, you get one shot at it, and that's the reason I'm making this video, is to tell you I will not reset it. Make sure that you set aside time, make sure that you do your best. Okay? Okay, with all that in mind, again, as we go forward in the course, you just have a couple of other different things. Make sure that you're paying attention to the explorations. We'll talk about this exploration as we go forward as well. That's a bit of an optional thing. I'm not going to talk about it until next week. Last thing, make sure that you pay careful attention to the gender lecture that I've listed right here. The reason that I want to emphasize that is because, well, let me just say this directly too, since you're watching this video. Please don't walk into this thinking like, oh, he's trying to convince me of something but gender and something but sex, and this is all the stuff I was warned about in college. Approach this with an open mind, okay? Because these have very clear, specific terms, and just to be frank, they have nothing whatsoever. Well, they have very, very, very little to do, nothing. They have very, very little to do with the issue of sexual orientation and transgenderism and whatnot. These terms instead denote specific characteristics of human culture and human society that we can then partition and then better study because of that partitioning. If you come into this and you hear those words and you hear me saying, okay, well, let's clearly define these words, and then you panic and you think, well, this is all the stuff that people have warned me about, you're not going to be able to follow the lesson very effectively. Just be aware that there is a very specific way that these terms are used in academia, and my job in this class is to get you to better understand the specific ways that those terms are used. As ever, if you have any questions about that, any questions about anything else I've said in this video, any questions about really anything, reach out. I'm happy to respond. I'm happy to help. It never hurts to ask. Reach out, no matter what the question is, okay? All right, I'll see you again next week, and I might have another video, might just do a written form. I don't know. I needed to do a video for this one so that way you could see some of the things I have to say. Okay? See you next week.